It's Tuesday, December 22nd, 2015. Yes, Tuesday for this Christmas holiday special of Real and the Field Goals right here. We're coming at you every week with more Seahawks news and talk. This week, the Seahawks preparing to play the St. Louis Rams at home in Seattle just after Christmas, which takes place on Friday. So Friday, it's going to be something, depending on your preference or whatnot. But anyway, I'm Kenneth Arthur, and with me as always is Danny Kelly. We are both of FieldGoals.com, and our guest this week for the holiday special, Mina Kimes of ESPN The Mag. Mina, do you want to get into your religious beliefs and whatnot about? No, I'll take that as a no.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. This week I'm going to be celebrating a Cajun Christmas as we are recording this on a Tuesday because it'll be a little bit difficult for me to record this on Wednesday or Thursday as I will be in New Orleans.
New Orleans.
New Orleans for the holidays, and right there in New Orleans, Louisiana. So it should be a good time, and then hopefully a Seahawks win this week against the St. Louis Rams, looking for a little bit of vengeance from their Week 1 loss in overtime, famous for perhaps the Deion Bailey, Lance Kendricks play that gave St. Louis a chance to win as Seattle lost to Nick Foles, who is no longer an NFL quarterback, really. So that was
Weird.
very fun.
Can we just think about how far the season has come since then?
Yeah,
Like,
and think of
different,
the expectations of Rams fans after that week, and perhaps Seattle as well. But without Cam Chancellor, who knew what was going to happen? We'll let our guest get the first word in here. Mina, you've got the Rams coming up. How much different do you expect this game to go than that game?
Pretty different, hopefully. I mean, ironically, we probably won't have Cam Chancellor. Is that what we're hearing lately, right now, or has there been any updates on the injury?
Still up in the air, I think. He was moving around better.
Okay.
Better than me.
So obviously these are two teams on pretty different trajectories. The Seahawks have, really turned around their season, have been phenomenal, especially on offense over the last few weeks. The Rams, until last week, were on a significant losing streak. They beat Tampa Bay pretty handily, though we can talk about that a little bit later. I think there may have been some factors in that game. But, the other thing I'd probably mention is that the Seahawks always seem to play the Rams really well at home and beat them pretty handily, and struggled against them on the road recently. But there's a lot of interesting stuff coming in this game. I'm really interested to see what Todd Gurley can do. Obviously, the Rams have perhaps the least balanced offense in the NFL in terms of pass and rush. They're 32nd, I think, in overall, but also 32nd in pass DVOA and 11th in rushing. So that's something the Seahawks will have to focus on this week.
If I may, something I found interesting, here we go, is the Seahawks have rushed for 100 yards in all 14 of their games this season. So going up against the Rams and the Cardinals, and doing so without Thomas Rawls for sure, without Marshawn Lynch probably for Week 17, definitely this week. Only one team in NFL history has ever rushed for 100 yards in all 16 games, that being the 1990 Chicago Bears. Danny, do you think that they'll continue that streak this week with Kristen Michael?
I do think so, yeah. And in fact, I think the Seahawks, I keep seeing this come up on the telecast or whatever. I think it's 25 games in a row that they've rushed for 100 yards as a team, going back to last year.
Wow.
So I don't really see any reason why that will change this week. I think obviously the Rams have a strong defensive line, but I think the Seahawks are going to probably take a lead early on and kind of want to run the ball a lot in the second half to wear down kind of salt the game away. So, I mean, again, if Russell Wilson keeps playing like he's playing, I don't see any reason why the Seahawks should lose this game. They're out Robert Quinn, so that's going to be a big factor. They're going to have to really worry about Aaron Donald, of course. So I bet they'll do a lot of like rollouts and bootlegs and stuff like that to try and mitigate that. But man, I just don't think the Rams are very good, frankly. I mean, they looked all right last week against the Buccaneers, but they've just been so inconsistent all year and really not very good at a lot of the time.
Yeah, and it's also another thing is that only 4 teams in NFL history have thrown for 200 yards and rushed for 100 yards in at least 13 games. The Seahawks have tied the NFL record by doing that 13 times. In the one game that they didn't throw for 200 yards, even though Russell Wilson technically threw for more than 200 yards with sacks, it brought it down to 197 against the Cincinnati Bengals. So if they can do that 2 more times and have 2 more than any other team in NFL history, and that's something that obviously seems to be the trajectory going with Russell Wilson recently is no problems throwing the ball. Tyler Lockett and Doug Baldwin finding everything. I guess since the last time we talked to you, Mina, I don't know if Doug Baldwin had caught a touchdown yet in his NFL career, but he's caught a lot recently. Has your opinion of Doug Baldwin changed recently?
I mean, he's playing at an elite level right now, but so is Russell Wilson, and their chemistry is obviously undeniable. And I think, the Rams have an excellent pass defense. I think it's better than their run defense, but I still think we'll be able to put up quite a bit against them. I went back and looked at the Tampa Bay game just to kind of see what happened, and the Bucks put up 509 yards against them to 319. So there was a lot of screw-ups, it seems like, offensively, just missed scoring opportunities. So I don't think that the Seahawks will have a problem continuing their scoring streak, famous last words, but the Rams defense is funny, right? Because going into every season, we always hear they're going to be elite and the best, and they just never really are, despite having arguably one of the top 3. I think Aaron Donald is one of the top 3 defensive players in the NFL right now. I don't know if you guys agree. But I don't know. I just think that we'll be able to score a lot against them. I don't see that being a huge problem, and I think the Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin connection is going to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, top 3 is tough competition, unless for anybody to get into with all those positions. Definitely for a defensive tackle to have 11 sacks in 14 games and 20 sacks now in his career, and I think the future of a Warren Sapp type level respect at defensive tackle or Cortez Kennedy is definitely there. But at least the offensive line for Seattle has played, just a lot better than they did before, and I'm just kind of trying to figure out what the biggest change has been for. Is it just Patrick Lewis? How is the way that Russell Wilson is treating the pocket and the offensive line, and we've talked a lot about trust and giving himself time to actually trust the play to break down. I mean, he was at, what was it, like 33 sacks at 7 games, and now he's at 40. He's still among the league leaders, but he's hardly been sacked at all in these last 7 games. Danny, what is the biggest reason for that?
I think it's, as with anything, it's a couple of things. First of all, I think Pete Carroll talked about this. They adapted their offense a little bit after the bye week. I don't know why it took them to get to the bye week to do that, but they decided to start making like a bigger focus on getting the ball out more quickly, and that's happened, I think, to try and give Russell Wilson a little more rhythm in the pocket and a little more confidence, just hitting his back foot and throwing it. And so they do a lot of that, and they did this before, but I feel like they're doing it a little bit more. They do like the slant out route combination. It's like the pick play. They've been doing that pretty well. That doesn't take very long to develop at all. They've been doing, against the zone thing, they'll do like a trips formation and, have guys run in 3 different directions, and Russell Wilson then can read the defense based on what they do and just get the ball out quickly. And so they're doing things like that where I don't think they did it as much earlier on in the year. Stuff was a little bit longer developing, so that's been a big factor. I think having Patrick Lewis in there has been big too. It's funny because I think it also is just kind of like a confidence factor. I think they've become more confident and have learned to play together a little bit better in terms of the communication, just knowing what each guy is going to do in any given situation. there's less, there's a lot fewer just blatant missed blocks, like where they're like not even blocking a guy. It happened a lot early on. So that's another thing. And then the third thing I think would be just Russell Wilson actually hitting his back foot and throwing the football, which he didn't do quite as much early on in the year. He's trusting what he's seeing. He's trusting where his receivers are going to be. The receivers are doing an excellent job of getting open and catching the football. And it's just a crazy like confluence of everything. And they're all of a sudden just like unstoppable. I mean, when you have literally the greatest quarterback like streak of all time in terms of what Russell Wilson's doing, like a lot of stuff has to be going right, and they're all kind of just like Wilson said, they're all firing on the same, like on all cylinders right now.
Yeah.
I think it'll be interesting going into this week if we don't have Russell Okung, which seems possible because in terms of trying to diagnose what's been good about the offensive line and what's been causing this, if we don't have him, it'll be, I guess, interesting to see how much that affects the performance of the line and of Russell. Also, going into free agency, which is something we can talk about later. I think someone asked a question about that. He is going to be a free agent, obviously, so.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting.
It's and with this week against the St. Louis Rams, Mina, I know that sometimes it seems like women in sports don't always actually like to be asked about the female perspective, but given this game against the Rams and the Seahawks, the two running backs are Christine and Gurley. So what are your thoughts there?
Todd Gurley's a problem. I mean, he's going to be a problem for us for years to come. One thing that was, I thought, a little alarming about the Bucs game is that he actually wasn't tremendously dominant, but the mere presence of him, I think, really affected the game. He put up less than 50 yards, but the offense was still able to score a lot, and Case Keenum had a pretty good game. And I think, Todd Gurley is becoming one of those players that does tilt the field regardless in the way that Seahawks running backs do, to where the defense has to adjust. Luckily, we have a phenomenal run defense this year, so this will be, I think, an interesting challenge. I did see after the game that he maybe had, not an injury, but was like a little sore in his knee, so we'll see how aggressively they play him in a game that really doesn't matter for them at this point.
Yeah, I don't think that you can underscore enough that Todd Gurley, as much as the total numbers and a few huge games, has really struggled in about half of his starts, whether that's the offensive line or the defenses. The Seahawks, rush defense is still among the best in the NFL, so it shouldn't necessarily be a problem you would expect. The Seahawks are third in rushing yards allowed, fourth in yards per carry allowed. Still sport the number 2 defense. Danny, this is the first time that we're going to get to face Todd Gurley, and do you have any idea what to expect?
I think what you do is you approach the game, and this is like obviously a compliment to him, but you approach the game like you approach playing the Vikings, where he's the guy that you game plan to stop, and you just really, really focus on tackling. And luckily, I think that's the Seahawks' real strength, you saw what we did to the Vikings in terms of game planning and taking Adrian Peterson completely out of the game. And so I think that's what they'll try and do with Todd Gurley. I assume Case Keenum is playing again this week. I really know hardly anything about him as a quarterback, but
he had a big game. He did really well.
Against the Bucs, yeah.
Yeah, against the Bucs, who are a mediocre pass defense. But one thing about tackling is I do feel like the tackling is generally worse when Cam is out. Just thinking back to just years past and the first 2 weeks of this season, I don't know if it's something about the way he plays, where the linebackers have to drop back more, or they're like just kind of used to having around. But I do feel like it's something that tends to drop off when he's missing.
Yeah, so that's something to watch. Maybe you have to see Bobby Wagner pick up some of the slack there. I thought that Kelsey McRae did a really good job in this last game, and tackling-wise, he was good. So that was, encouraging for sure.
This is we got the Seahawks and Rams. Let's not mince words too much about this game. As I wrote in the look around, this is a win for the Seahawks, and if it's not a win, I mean, even though as tough as the Rams can play Seattle, it'd be a pretty big upset if they manage to lose to Case Keenum at home with the way that they're playing right now. So let's zoom ahead a little bit. It doesn't seem feasible. It doesn't seem very probable, I should say, that the Seahawks-Arizona game is going to have any impact on the playoff picture whatsoever. Unless the Vikings manage to upset the Packers in Week 17 and push them down into a wild card spot, in which case the Seahawks could be in danger, I guess, of falling to the 6th seed if they don't win out. There's not going to be a lot on the line for Arizona, which is the same thing unless Arizona has a chance to get the number 2 seed, or the number 1 seed, I should say. That depends if Carolina can't beat, the Falcons this week, or their last game, Tampa Bay. So it's not going to be a lot on the line, maybe perhaps for Arizona, but what are some of the things? Because again, the Seahawks might have been there. And the funny thing was that Football Outsiders said it was the best game the Seahawks played all year up to that point, was that 39-32 loss to the Cardinals. So Mina, what kind of stuff are you looking for in Arizona, especially now that Tyrann Mathieu is going to miss the rest of the season, and he was arguably their best defensive player?
Yeah, sorry, speaking of Football Outsiders, I was just checking to see if DVOA dropped. Nope, it's not out yet. It could come out right in the middle of this podcast with an extremely exciting moment, like winning the lottery. No, just playoff odds. Okay. It's a huge loss for them, losing Tyrann. I mean, he's played at an incredibly elite level this year, I think. And that really helps us in terms of, I think we'll be able to, our offense is obviously performing much better than it was at the time, but they have a pretty stacked secondary, but I do think he does things on the field in terms of, they run a lot of really aggressive schemes where sometimes he's pressuring the quarterback, and I think that missing piece will really help us out. The Cardinals are the team in the NFC that I fear the most. I don't know if you guys agree for the playoffs.
Probably, to me, they're the most intimidating team.
Yeah, I mean, I said, I think as well as I think that for me, it goes Cardinals, Seahawks, Panthers in the NFC right now, and then I think there's a big drop off after that.
Yeah, and it seems like David Johnson is not any drop off from Chris Johnson. So, I think the Seahawks got really lucky with him not playing. And as you mentioned, Week 17 is going to be so bonkers in terms of who's playing actual football and not. It's kind of hard to predict at this point. But for the playoffs, that's just such a tremendous loss for them.
Yeah, I mean, that's their whole. So much of their identity on the defense wrapped into, Tyrann Mathieu. He's got 16 passes defense, 5 interceptions, 80 tackles. He was all over the field. I mean, there was a lot of doubt and questions about Mathieu going into his career as, the Honey Badger, and then he sort of has turned into the player that they want him to be, and then a bunch more that any NFL team probably at some point regretted that they didn't take him. And, now what do they do without him? But at the same time, none of it's going to matter if you can't stop Carson Palmer, Larry Fitzgerald, John Brown, Malcolm Floyd, David Johnson. Danny, this is a whole offense on Arizona. Isn't that a big reason why they're in the position they're in, is actually what they're doing on offense with arguably the MVP, Carson Palmer?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And the way that they attack downfield is really what kind of makes me nervous. They can get a big play at any given time. They've done that all year. Carson Palmer is averaging 8.8 yards an attempt, which is just insane. And that's actually right now. If you look at guys, Russell Wilson's actually second now, which is insane in yards per attempt. So, he's just 0.1 over Andy Dalton and Ben Roethlisberger now. So I mean, that's like the kind of company that what Russell Wilson's keeping right now. But back to Carson Palmer, I mean, he's just perfect for that offense. He throws a really, really, really accurate deep ball. He's got a couple of guys, different styled guys that can go down and get the ball too. Like John Brown, he's the type that, like Tyler Lockett, he'll run under a really deep pass. Michael Floyd's the kind of guy who can go up and get like a contested pass. And then Larry Fitzgerald is, a Hall of Famer. So, man, they're just really, really difficult to defend.
Well, who do you think is a better offense, Arizona or Pittsburgh? Because I think it's Pittsburgh.
I think Pittsburgh has the best offense in the NFL.
Yeah. So Pittsburgh was obviously able to put up a lot
500
of
something
yards. Yeah. But, I mean, it is a game that the Seahawks won.
That's true. And I mean, I think the key was keeping them out of the end zone in that game.
Exactly. So I was going to say, yeah.
That's another thing, obviously, for the Seahawks is like, with Kerry Williams gone now, I feel like I trust the secondary a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think he was kind of adversely affecting everybody, honestly, which is, not to pile on or anything, but when you can't trust a guy on that side, I think that was affecting Earl Thomas.
Yeah, I think the safeties were cheating over a lot.
Yeah, so
opening up holes in there.
He always talks about being tied on a string, and I think Kerry was really fucking that up. So, I mean, that's a big reason they cut him. So
I think one of the main things as well with Arizona, that as much as they've been able to have such a great offense and the way that things are rolling with what they've got on offense, second in scoring, first in yards, and all that kind of good stuff, you still would have to look at their schedule and not necessarily. I'm not, I'm not the coach. I'm not the Chris Richard, so I don't know exactly how to read everything that goes into it, but I'd still say, why is this a team that scored 13 points against the Steelers, 26 against the Ravens, 19 against the 49ers, 27 against the Rams, 22 against the Rams, 23 against the Vikings, and 31 against the Saints, which is like 10 points against anybody else. So I would also only say that also, hey, if they're playing teams that they can't force turnovers, because the Cardinals are second in takeaways this year, and they force 6 turnovers against the Lions. They score 42 points. They get 4 turnovers against the 49ers, score 47 points. They get 4 turnovers against the Eagles. They score 40 points. 3 turnovers against the Vikings, 2 turnovers. All of these sort of games where they put up these big numbers, it seems like they're facing teams that can't protect the football. And the Seahawks right now are protecting the football as well as anybody in the NFL. So that's got to give you some comfort knowing that if your quarterback isn't throwing interceptions and a couple of the fumbles, it's like Thomas Rawls has a fumble, DeJuan Harris has a fumble, those kind of fluke little things, and it's just a matter of whether or not you can trust Kristen Michael and that the way that and Marshawn Lynch is coming back. Mina, how much pressure do you sort of put on yourself to believe that you need Marshawn Lynch to win the Super Bowl?
I don't know, right? I don't know. Sorry, Danny, did you just laugh? I just heard like
I don't know. I don't know either.
I mean, I don't think anyone knows what level Marshawn Lynch is going to perform at when he comes back. This is his first surgery, right? Is what they're saying.
Yep.
And it's a very unusual injury for him. Obviously, he's doing his secretive rehab thing. But
typical Marshawn, by the way.
But Marshawn Lynch wasn't performing at an extremely high level before he was injured this year. And obviously this offense no longer it needs to run, but it doesn't wholly depend on it in the same way that it used to, I think. So I don't know how important he's going to be. I still want him back. I want to see what he can do. I think they'll mix up him and Christine a little bit. Is it Christine? We've been saying Christine. I always thought it was Kristen.
I think it's Kristen.
I called him Christine for comedic effect, but
okay. Sorry.
I did hear Pete Carroll called him Christian on the air yesterday, so I have no freaking clue what his name is.
Why doesn't he just like Chris or something,
I thought Chris CM looked great this week, and would you take the way he looked last week or the way Marshawn Lynch going into it? I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
I would say it looks like, from some of the numbers that Sheil Capata, now that's another one that I'm not sure about how to say, but, I think he said that Michael is averaging something like 3.7 yards per carry before contact, so I think that has something to do with the lanes being open up, also him going into the right places as well.
Yeah.
And I think that he said that him and Bryce Brown both averaged 2 yards per carry after contact, which, if you're getting 3.7 before is pretty good. I mean, that's something to look out for. But definitely you could tell there was it just seems like there's a burst with Michael that when he gets the ball,
Mm-hmm.
you feel like they never lost any yards on any of their carries. So you feel like you're going to get something every time he touches the ball, and certainly it feels a little bit exhilarating just in the grand scheme of things that there's like a Disney movie here somewhere of a guy that has just been completely excommunicated from a team and then a few months short months later is starting for them out of necessity, and it could be sort of a storybook ending.
And how crazy is it? And I think this is indicative of how much the offense has changed. That I'm more comfortable, using a random, like losing, maybe not having Marshawn back, for example, than giving up, say, Doug Baldwin or Tyler Lockett, who at this point, yeah. But seriously, right? I mean, would you rather stick with Michael and try to ride that, or give up one of those wide receivers going into the Super Bowl?
There is, the idea that maybe part of the reason Russell Wilson's been doing so well is because it's like his offense now,
Yeah.
And there's no question about that, because there's always like the whole, the rumors underneath the surface that Marshawn Lynch and Russell Wilson, don't get along. Marshawn considers it his offense. He thinks Darrell Bevel's stupid and play calling and all that BS. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
can be a distraction and can detract from the chemistry on the field. And so that's kind of one thought. That's one side of it, like that I kind of worry about.
Honestly, how many teams in the last 20 years, or that you can remember back as far, how many teams do you remember winning the Super Bowl where you thought that their quarterback and their running back were almost equals? Because it doesn't feel like the
never.
Seahawks are one,
Yeah.
but the Patriots, I don't know, they don't have any running backs. The Ravens in 2012. I guess it was Ray Rice, which was maybe up there with Joe Flacco. The Giants the year before, I don't know who their running back was. The Packers, no. The Saints, no. Those Steelers in 2008, obviously that's Ben's team. The Giants are Manning's team. Colts are Manning's team. Steelers, that one with Jerome Bettis, but that was at the end of Bettis' career, and that was still Willie Parker and all those kinds of guys. It doesn't really feel like there is as much cohesion if you just have, as much as it might feel like you want to have great players at every position. Maybe there is something to be said for a quarterback, like you said, where this is that quarterback's team, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think about, this is different, but my experience playing basketball growing up is like when you tinker around with like different lineups, like it can be vastly different, even if everybody's good, So I don't know. It's just a thought, it's a theory. I think everyone's like,
who's offense?
Yeah. You know what? The weird thing is, like, everyone's like, oh, since Graham left, they've been so good. That means Graham's bad.
Yeah.
It's like, you know what? There's like probably 500 variables at play here. So like maybe don't use that one-to-one like correlation. But I think with Marshawn, there's a legit like concern that he'll come back and it'll upset the chemistry of what they have going on right now. So I don't know. It's a little bit worrisome, but at the same time, I mean, he's one of the greatest running backs in the NFL.
In the playoffs, especially, right?
Especially in the playoffs, yeah. And there's like this, like the whole other side of it would be like, wow, you're getting back like one of your best players, if not your best player, right when you need him the most. He's going to be fresh. He hasn't taken a lot of hits this year. He's very low tread on the tire, or low wear on the tread this year. That sounds like an amazing thing. And so it's to me, it's like I don't know which one to think. And that's why when you said at the beginning, you said I don't know. I'm like, man, I don't either. Like, because honestly, it could be either.
Yeah, I think it's important to, when we talk about the identity of this team, I still think they're always going to run the ball more than, the average in the NFL because of the way Russell Wilson plays and how it benefits him as a quarterback and having that, multiple threat and play action. So I don't think the identity of the team will change, but I do think we'll be going forward, perhaps less reliant on an elite running back. Although Thomas Rawls is an elite running back, in my opinion. So.
Absolutely, the best in the NFL history.
I think Christian Michael is the best NFL running back in NFL history this weekend.
How hard are you trying not to get sucked into the Christian Michael hype again? Like,
not hard at all. Zero effort. Take me away.
Yeah, me too.
I don't care.
It's so easy to get back on the hype train.
I love it.
It's like wagon.
I think one certainly it seems is one thing that has been better that maybe you could see one change perhaps was the defense. Seems to be on a better page now without Kerry Williams. That being a negative. For it seems like the signing that didn't really work out as we all sort of maybe hoped that it would, given that they obviously liked something about Kerry Williams. He was a veteran that had maybe shown some stuff in the past, and you kind of trust that Pete Carroll knows what kind of cornerback he wants, and then if you put him in the system, that over time he'll be able to get it. He didn't get it, and he only played in 10 games, and Deshaun Shedd's been out there, and though the opponents haven't been the best, the Seahawks have allowed just one offensive touchdown drive in the last 3 games. Some of these guys out there are having perhaps their best seasons of their career. I mean, I look at a guy like Michael Bennett, 9.5 sacks. I predict that he's going to make the Pro Bowl this year for the first time in his career. That's something that I'm sort of betting on. I bet that he'll get it in. So some of these other guys out there still playing at a high level. Now that we're getting close to the end of the year, Danny, when you've got the Legion of Boom have any of these guys sort of, do you think, played at a lesser level among the secondary, or at a better level, or at the same level between Chancellor, Thomas, and Sherman?
I think that Sherman has played better I think he's having like a really, really good year. If not better, then at least as good as what he's been playing in the past. I don't think the whole idea that he's not as good anymore I don't think that makes any sense. He's been asked to do a lot more stuff too. He's following guys around. He's playing from the slot. He's still just really, really, really reliable. And then I think Earl and Cam, I don't really know, honestly. I don't think Cam's had as big of an impact this year as he did last year, where he was literally like taking over games at times last year, which is why I think he held out, because he thought he was worth more than he's getting. And to me, it doesn't seem like he's lived up to that this year. I don't think he's as dominant. I think he's still a really good player, but he doesn't seem like the game changer that he was last year. And then Earl Thomas, I don't know. He's had a couple bad games, I think, this year. Otherwise, he's been pretty solid too. It's kind of the same deal as Cam. Like, it doesn't seem like he's made as many game-changing plays, but he's not kind of the guy that racks up stats. He's kind of just the guy that, like, when you don't really notice him is when he's doing so well. It's because they like never throw his way. So I think Earl's having a good year, other than a few games where he was noticeable in the negative sense. But I think he's still one of the best safeties in the NFL.
Mina, any concerns in regards to your one and only firstborn child?
Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan Hill.
For the uninitiated, yeah.
Concerns about I don't know where he is in terms of.
Well, he hasn't played
status.
since Pittsburgh, and I don't know what his status is either. But
Pete Carroll
it seems
said good practice this week.
Oh, that's good.
Have you had any opportunity on defense to maybe adopt a new child in his stead?
Oh, interesting. I'm far too loyal for that. But I think one thing that's interesting about, you mentioned Kerry Williams not working and those young guys, Shed and Lane maybe stepping up and being okay. It is fascinating how many veteran cornerbacks have failed in Seattle and how good they are at slotting veteran defensive linemen in. I mean, we got to talk about Ruben, whose first name I can't say. Is it Atiba?
Atiba.
Or Atuba. No, Atiba. Atiba. I think it's Atiba.
Atuba. Ruben Incorporated.
It really does feel like they're just really good at slotting those guys in, whereas something about the way our defensive back, the way we run the defense in the back seems to just be too difficult for veterans to pick up. So, I was disappointed this year not being able to see Therild, who I thought, had a really good chance to start. But that does seem to be something they kind of came to terms with mid-season.
Yeah, do you have any sort of, it's a little early to be really talking about it, and let's say, and with the Seahawks, there's no really ever any point to talk about it right now, but when you sort of look at the roster right now and think ahead, this is sort of something that, well, I guess it didn't really come up in any sort of the Q&As that'll be coming up, but if you could just sort of add one player at a first-round pick or using that pick to get something, what position are you like, God, if we just had this one thing, I
Yeah.
would feel so much better?
Well, I don't think they're gonna re-sign Okung, so I would choose a left tackle.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tough thing to get in this day and age, which is why maybe they
Sure.
they will be making a push for Okung because yeah, it's tough to find one on free agency, and it's especially tough to find one if you don't have a top 10 pick. It seems like with Okung. So I know that one thing that was interesting as well is there's right now I can't think of it because I'm trying, but there's a cornerback at LSU like their old Simon. That I know Rob Staten has as perhaps his top cornerback in the draft, and other people are saying that he might go at the end of the first round, and I even saw the SB Nation mocked him to Seattle. So, does cornerback interest you at all of being able to upgrade that, or are you more concerned about, getting in something in like on the offensive line where you're more concerned about how good it is?
I would prioritize offensive line. I do think some of the young cornerback. I guess we haven't seen a lot of Ty Smith, but cornerbacks tend to be a year two situation in
Hmm.
Seattle, right? So I do think we have enough there, not to go super high. Jeremy Lane's a free agent, right?
He will be, yeah.
Yeah, you got to think that the cornerback market, the market for Seattle cornerbacks is probably going to be depressed a little bit after the last 2 years. So hopefully we'll be able to keep him. And I think he's looked intermittently pretty good. Maybe not
Yeah.
the superstar that some paint him to be, but he looked good in the last game, made a few good tackles. So I would definitely, start with the offensive line.
Dan, where would you start?
Yeah, I agree actually. I mean, it's just like when you've seen what Russell Wilson can do when he has a freaking
Yeah,
pocket. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's just like I don't care if you've like invested there already. Like, keep doing that. Like, I like the idea of going offensive line in round one. If they're not going to do that, to me, it's pass rush. So either outside linebacker or a defensive end. Or a
yep.
guy like Frank Clark style, like where he can rush inside and outside. To me, those are the two top priorities: offensive line and pass rush. And then if no one there in those two positions that you like, I think the third priority for me would be corner or safety.
Oh,
So
safety. Yeah, I would definitely go,
safety depends.
especially with Cam. I would like a big, strong
Maybe
safety.
maybe I would put safety above corner. But yeah, I mean to me it starts up front in the trenches again, and I know it's a cliche, but like seriously, like give Russell Wilson a pocket and like we've seen what he can do. And then, in terms of the defense, like it starts with the pass rush. Like it's all about the pass rush.
Well, we'll see what happens, and we'll get to maybe perhaps something that'll clarify some of that in our Q&A section here, as requested by Mina, to get some Q's out here so we can give out some A's. And if the Seahawks do resign Russell Okung and J.R. Sweezy, then you got to think that they might feel okay with the five guys that they're putting out there right now if they continue to play like this, and then the draft and free agency and all that stuff will go a different way. So. Let's get into the segment of question and answers from Twitter. I'll do my best to sort of direct it unless there's anything that you guys want to interject with, and we'll try and rapid fire off some of these answers but be concise and thorough. Seahawks 16 at SHWKS 16 NOE. Do you think Seahawks offense can sustain the success against better defenses like Carolina and Arizona? The implication there being that the Browns, Ravens, Vikings, Steelers, 49ers, Cowboys, and such don't have good defenses. Well, they only scored 13 against the Cowboys, so I guess that doesn't count. But they did score 32 against Arizona. So,
Hmm.
guys, do you think that the Seahawks can go into the playoffs, play Arizona and Carolina, and still be putting up these great numbers, starting with Danny?
I don't know if it's a good idea to expect them to continue at a ridiculously historic level.
Yeah.
So I would say no, but I think that they can continue to be very efficient and continue to run the ball well. And I think Russell Wilson is going to continue to be really good. Throwing the ball from the pocket and doing what he's doing. I don't think it's probably a good idea to expect him to continue to have like literally a perfect passer rating or anything like that. But I mean, again, it's about perspective. So I think you're going to be playing a lot tougher defenses. You should expect that you won't have it quite as easy. But I do think that with the way the offense is playing, that they're going to continue to be really effective and really efficient and score points. And I think it's going to be kind of in years past, it's been the defense that really carried the Seahawks. I think this year it's going to be the offense a little bit.
And Mina?
Yeah, I agree with everything Danny said. I think this next week will be a pretty good test because we'll be playing a top 10 defense, and we'll get to see, how that affects it. I mean, the Seahawks have been scoring on every drive, right? Is that sustainable? I mean, it's crazy. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see this coming week how they perform.
Yeah, and let's not forget, second time around with Carolina, third time with Arizona. They'll be learning a little bit of tricks. No Tyrann Mathieu, and I'm just so shocked by how long Carolina has sustained their record of health this year. They really haven't suffered anything since Kelvin Benjamin's injury. They just gave up 28 points in about 15 minutes to the Giants. So I don't think the Panthers are anything close to perfect.
They gave up a whole bunch of points against the Saints, too.
Yeah. There's vulnerabilities there, and Russell Wilson is playing at this level. We'll see. The esports writer at Fionn on Fire says, you could either have $500,000 or clone Russell Wilson. Which would you choose? Nina?
$500,000 for me personally.
I guess.
Yeah, I would take the $500,000.
Who's taking the Russell Wilson clone? What is the clone for exactly?
Well, okay, maybe let's reposition this question.
Can we sell the clone?
You're the Seahawks. Would you rather the Seahawks had 500? Well, obviously you'd rather have the clone Russell Wilson.
Yeah, because that's worth way more than $500,000. Russell Wilson just gave him a $31 million signing.
Would you rather have $5 million in caps?
I think it says a lot more about Fionn on Fire, that they're somewhat debating whether or not they could have their own Russell Wilson or $500,000. Either they are super rich. Like maybe if it was like $500.
I'm taking the money.
I think everybody's taking the old money there, the A Sports writer. So Footsballing at 12th_monkey asks, name an under-the-radar Seahawks player who deserves love and tell us why. And this could go either way. So answer the question as you feel, Mina.
I'm going to go with AJ Francis, my new Twitter friend, who has an excellent Twitter, and tweeted something that I thought was really correct the other day, which was that people on the internet are legitimately the worst. For football reasons, I'll go with Ruben. I think he's been great and much better than anyone could have anticipated.
Give more love in real life to AJ Francis and on the football field to Atiba Rubin. Danny, what about you?
Yeah, the way that I first read this was that he was asking, or he or she was asking, which player seems lonely and deserves love from a human being. And I guess my first reaction to that would be, let's see here. I guess maybe Luke Wilson or something. I don't know.
Why Luke Wilson?
After they lost the Super Bowl, he went down in his basement and didn't come out for a week. And he drank champagne and played video games. So maybe he deserves the love of a good woman.
Sometimes when I look into Earl Thomas's eyes, I think he might need some.
Yeah, but he's married and has a kid, so I think he's probably good in that. But Michael Bennett's always talking about how he's porking his wife, so I don't think he needs it.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about how much sex you're getting, or if you've got a loving wife. When I look at Earl, it's like there's something going on there.
He needs a hug. Yeah.
It might just be that.
There is a sadness in his eyes at times.
I'm not going to do this MFK between dogs. This one is going to take, I don't know how long. See, we got to have some sort of stipulation or guidelines on this question because there are 5,000 Star Wars characters now. But if the Seahawks.
Just 3.
Let's just name them out. Let's just throw them out.
Taylor Edwards, NW, asks if the Seahawks were Star Wars characters, who would be who? So how did you want to do it, Danny?
Doug Baldwin is Boba Fett.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay, this is exactly how these games go. You just name 2 names that are in both things, and then don't associate them in any way.
Boba Fett, because he's not he's
you
a little bit
you don't know what Boba Fett is, do you?
He's a little bit nefarious.
Inscrutable.
Yeah, he'll take to the Twitters and throw out like a really vague thing that'll get everyone riled up. But he's
He shows
also
up at the very end after being quiet for the entire section of his existence, and
he's
then
hard to
everybody falls in love with him instantly.
he's hard to kill. He kind of flies all over the place.
Yeah.
Boba Fett
I
doesn't say anything, and Doug Baldwin doesn't shut his mouth.
don't do any current characters because I
This is
haven't
mine.
no spoilers. I haven't none from the current movie. I'm gonna say Russell Wilson's obviously Luke Skywalker because they're both kind of corny. But the future of the universe depends on them both.
That's
I don't know.
really good. Hard to argue that one, honestly.
Yeah, Luke Wilson is Adam Driver. That's all I got. I don't think anybody can get that.
So that's an actor's name, but okay.
Yeah, in the movie he also goes by Adam Driver from Girls. So
Richard Sherman is definitely Han Solo.
Okay,
yeah,
so if Sherman is Han Solo, who's his Chewbacca?
Russell Okung.
I could see that, I guess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Oh no, Russell Okung. If you kind of just isolate the face, he looks like oh shit.
Be careful here.
Yeah,
No,
don't say anything offensive, please.
No, if you just isolate the face area and look just at Russell Okung's face, oh come on, this is bull crap.
I'm afraid to say anything here. I'm not going to say anything.
Is this a spoiler issue? I don't want you to say
No.
Are you trying to remember like the name of the character or like?
Yes. Oh no, he looks like an Ewok. I think.
I was gonna say I think Michael Bennett kind of looks like an Ewok a little bit.
Well, yeah. I mean, Michael Bennett just did a whole Star Wars thing.
Who's Yoda?
Darth Vader?
Oh.
Oh wait. Okay.
Well, Michael Bennett did come out wearing the Darth Vader mask, but I don't think they have a similar vibe. Darth Vader's Cam.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Earl Thomas would probably be.
I don't know. I feel like Darth Vader had an MVP season there before the Death Star was destroyed, and that's something that Cam Newton has not had.
I think he said Chancellor.
Oh, I thought you were talking Cam Newton.
You literally cannot restrain yourself from talking about Cam Newton. It's so crazy. Nobody mentioned Cam Newton.
Well, you can't call someone Cam, all right? And you said he's Darth Vader. That means that he's the enemy. So what Seahawks are the enemy? I mean,
who's Lando Calrissian?
Oh, that's a good one.
I think Earl Thomas is Yoda.
Yeah, Earl Thomas is definitely Yoda. I agree.
I'm cutting off this question.
I think Gary Gilliam is Lando.
What?
We're like getting off to the real outstretches here of the Star Wars universe.
Lando? He's a main character.
Oh, for one movie for a half a minute.
Carrie Williams was C-3PO.
Yeah, we didn't even get into the droids.
All right, let's get to the next question.
How many?
You gotta get Bruce Irvin before we end this.
So, well, I guess you sort of already answered this question, Danny, which is from I. Wastman. Players on the current roster you wouldn't mind drinking your sorrows away with? Because you just already talked about how Luke Wilson loves to drink his sorrows away.
I think I could drink a beer or two with Luke Wilson, and it would probably be really fun. I think Michael Bennett would probably be pretty funny to drink a beer with.
Yeah, for sure.
John Ryan would be funny, I think.
That's a good one.
Let's see here. I'm looking over the roster. I don't think Tyler Lockett's allowed to drink yet. Bruce Irvin, man. He would be funny.
Yeah, I would choose Bruce Irvin.
Yeah, that's it.
I'm gonna
That's
miss him
definitely
so much, guys. I'm already preemptively saying goodbye. He's such a I'm just gonna miss that guy so much when he plays for the Falcons.
Seriously.
David H.K. at Harmony Exchange asks, a film you thought on... I asked for some real in the film goals as well, so a film you honestly thought was good that got consensus bad reviews. Now, I actually thought about doing an entire podcast centered around this idea, so thank you, Harmony Exchange, for asking. It shows that maybe that was right, that there is a place in the world for this podcast. And this podcast, because I think there's a lot of movies that I like that the critics did not. And, one of the main ones that I think about that I saw recently was The Lone Ranger with Johnny Depp. Now, this movie got bad reviews, and so you wouldn't go see it. But then I heard as well that Quentin Tarantino put it on his top 10 list for that year, in particular in films. it's a great adventure movie. It's one of the best adventure movies that I've seen in the last 10 years or so. So Lone Ranger for me is a film that I honestly thought was good. And a lot of the people that make fun of you for it, when you say these things, never actually saw the movie. They're going off
I mean, it
reputation.
just looked fucking terrible, but yeah. Right.
Yeah.
I doubt that you even remember the trailer.
I do remember the trailer. In fact, I just thought it looked terrible, but
It turned out pretty good. Danny, is there a film that you thought was good that other people don't like?
I'm trying to think of one right now.
Nina, do you got one
Yeah.
while he's thinking?
It's probably an action movie. I like almost every action movie.
You know what movie was pretty good was John Wick. I don't know how
That was really well reviewed.
Yeah, I think
It's
that
like-
might have like 100% on Rotten
Yeah.
Tomatoes.
100%. Shut
Yeah,
up.
terrible pick.
I bet you it's above 90%.
I love John Wick.
Man.
John Wick has an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I think it was surprising to everyone that it was that well reviewed. Up
Yeah.
until the point that they hadn't seen it, you know.
Mm.
Man, that's a good question, though. I wish I would have done some
Yeah.
research on this. Um,
Maybe we should move along.
yeah.
Would Harmony Exchange also asked, would this year's offense, the way it's playing right now, beat the 2013 defense?
Ooh, that's a great question.
The way it's playing right now, yeah. But I don't think it would overall.
Like, okay, if they played 16 games against them, I think they would win 6. They go
Yeah.
6-10. That's
Well, then who
yeah.
is the? So they would have their same defenses and offenses. So like the full team would be playing against each other, or just the offense versus the defense.
Well, if the full teams played against each other.
Well, this is confusing.
You're running
now.
this Q&A, Kenny. You have to decide.
No, they both have the same level of the other side.
One game. You got one game. The offense versus the defense.
Mm.
Well, I don't know I don't know how this works. I'm so confused. Who's
Look,
playing for?
Look, I'll just put it this way. The Seahawks, that defense faced
Yeah.
the greatest offense in NFL history and absolutely kicked their ass. So
Well,
I'm
do you?
thinking
Yeah,
which
we
one.
know that the Broncos scored more points than anybody, and we're definitely on point with their offense, and no one's doubting that. But how do you think? It's so weird. Don't you watch this offense now for at least the last 4 weeks, and it's like every single drive, like Mina said, it feels like it ends in a
Yeah.
touchdown.
But we
It's
haven't
so-
seen this offense play a defense close to the level of
Yeah.
the 2013 game. You know, we haven't even seen them play a top 5 defense. So
Yeah.
it's just not comparable.
And it's not like I don't think the offense is doing well right now. I just think that the Seahawks 2013 offense is arguably the greatest defense of all time. Or sorry, their 2013 defense. So,
Yeah,
I mean, I have a hard time picking against them.
same.
Best guy around asks, "Homeward Bound, All Dogs Go to Heaven, or Ghost Dog?"
What is Ghost Dog?
Yeah, I have never seen Ghost Dog.
Ghost Dog, Way of the Ninja or something. It's something like that with Forrest Whitaker, and he plays a ghost. He plays a ghost dog that basically means that
Like,
he's
just the
a.
voice?
No, it's not like an actual dog. It's just like a nickname, I think. And it's like a ninja movie,
You're
basically.
making this up.
I swear to God, it is a real movie.
Sounds really
and-
good, though.
I've never seen Ghost Dog. I have seen the other 2 movies. I'd go with Homeward Bound. All Dogs Go to Heaven was super scary. One of the scariest movies I've ever seen, second only to The Secret of Nim.
Ooh, that one's good. Yeah.
Super scary. But yeah, All Dogs Go to Heaven, there's like a scene involving like hell or something that still haunts my.
I will say that when I was in college at Washington State, I took a screenwriting class, and so you would come in and work on screenplays. And my final, which was supposed to be like 30 pages or whatever, was a sequel to, and it was called All Dogs Go to Heaven 2: Scrappy's Revenge. So that was my shining moment in that class. Definitely head of the class there. With All Dogs Go to Heaven 2, and Scrappy went to hell, so not all dogs actually ended up going to heaven.
Scrappy.
Yeah. Meg Rowley at Meg Rowler asks, what should Russell get the O-line for Christmas?
You should get those hoverboards.
Yeah, I love that idea. Can you imagine all 5 of them on hoverboards?
That would be awesome, but
Is that safe?
they might get hurt, so that might not be the best idea.
Well,
Yeah.
well, if it's the offensive line, I don't know. might be okay with it. But Mina, you gotta have something here.
I like hoverboards too. I think it's a good. I mean, usually when quarterbacks get their offensive line, like Xboxes,
Yeah, or like TVs.
iPhones,
It's always
TV.
crazy to me when you get like a millionaire in Xbox, where it's just like,
Yeah, it's
Okay,
not like a.
here's another way of framing it. What do you think Russell Wilson will get them? Like
Oh,
knowing Russell Wilson, the
Golden
dork.
Bibles.
Bose. No, it's gonna be something on brand, like Bose headphones or
Right,
whatever,
totally.
and recovery water.
Yeah, it could be
Football
both.
bread.
Uh,
Like a lifetime supply of Gatorade.
That'd be pretty
oh,
sick.
it's got to be recovery water, right?
Well, he also is in Gatorade,
Oh,
people.
he has Gatorade too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it should be something, I guess. And he's definitely got more money now to spend on these guys than he ever has before. Though we don't endorse any one holiday here on Reel in the Field Goals Holiday Edition. I called it Blue Christmas on the Hangout here because I think that's somewhat significant. Blue Seahawks, Blue Friday, Blue Christmas works for me at least, and I don't really worry too much if it works for anybody else. So that's the end of this episode of Reel in the Field Goals. Mina, score prediction against the Rams?
Ooh, 28-7.
28-7. Danny?
I'm gonna say 31 to 21.
A lot more
Wow.
respectable there to give up 21 points.
Yeah, you think they're gonna score 21 points?
That's what I said. No, I don't know.
Gross.
I'm going to say, Seahawks 35, Rams 7. And Mina, one more question. Carolina Panthers, when did they get their first loss? When did they get their first loss?
When they play the Seattle Seahawks.
So, the divisional round.
Yeah. Kenny, I'm gonna be so happy for you. I'm gonna be picturing your face
I've
on
already
that day.
I've already got
Do you have celebratory tweets lined up?
I've already got some tweets planned that will just crush.
Just eviscerate. Yeah.
After the Seahawks beat the Panthers, it's so much of my life is building up to this point that if it doesn't happen, I don't know if I'll be able to continue my life. So
Wait, okay, new question. Would you rather win the Super Bowl and not get a chance to play them, and the game that they lose, Cam Newton plays amazingly, but they lose because he gets injured early on, and that's why they lose, so he becomes a martyr? Or would you rather beat them, crush him, pick off Cam 5 times, Russell Wilson has an amazing game, and then lose the Super Bowl?
Yeah. I have no problem with Cam Newton and the Panthers losing in any fashion, just as long as it is happening. I do want it to come at the hands of the Seahawks, but I mean, people that are ready to come at me and attack me. I mean, number one, let me say this: Cam Newton has already won the MVP, so all of my talk about him saying that he shouldn't win the MVP will not be eviscerated when he actually wins it. I'm not saying that he won't. I'm saying that he will and he shouldn't. And my thing about the Panthers is, yeah, they're probably the 7th or 8th best team in the NFL. Most people can't put that on a power rankings because your editors won't let you. But it's just a matter of the truth that when they put it out there, when DVOA comes out, it might be out right now. They'll be 5 or 6 or whatever. And if you look at the teams that they've played, they haven't played anybody except for the Seahawks, and the Packers are the 2nd best team they've played. I don't think the Packers are very good. So no matter what you say to anybody out there, the Panthers fans that want to come at me, I would just say wait to come at me until you win the Super Bowl, because I am more than fully loaded, ready to come after you when you lose A in the division round or B in the conference championship. And in the very unlikely event that you make the Super Bowl, then I will come after you lose to the Super Bowl, whether it is against the Patriots, whether it's against the Broncos, whether it's against the Chiefs, or whether it's against the Bengals, or whether against the Steelers, all 5 teams which I would say are favored against you. So that is the end of that rant. That is the end of Reel in the Field Goals for now, and I cannot do the math in my head, but perhaps that is the last Reel in the Field Goals of the year. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Mina, for joining us on this holiday edition. Follow her on Twitter at Mina Kimes, Danny at Field Goals, me at Kenneth Arthur S. Subscribe to Real in the Field Goals on iTunes. Go to fieldgoals.com and check us out throughout the year, and then come back Sunday after the Seahawks 35-7 win over the St. Louis Rams, and maybe by then we'll find out if I was right about my prediction about Michael Bennett making the Pro Bowl. Talk to you later.